Hi, my name is Jenna Durstein, and I have
Cleta Evans.
she is a second grade teacher over here at Kistler Elementary School, and she has graciously decided to join us for the pre-conference meeting. So before even starting though, I did ask her if she wanted to be a part of the on-camera view, and she has respectfully asked to just stay on here just temporarily, and then she's going to communicate with me off a little bit too as well. Sounds good. Thank you, Miss Evans.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, Miss Evans, so as we begin this conversation, we talked about your literacy instruction too as well. So why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about some of your dynamic and your approaches to your small group reading, what you focus in on.
As a second grade teacher, and with my experience and knowledge of college classes and my background in history of teaching for the last 10 years, I really noticed that students need to really work on their fluency to build their comprehension. A lot of students come into second grade and they struggle with reading words accurately and correctly. And then they struggle with decoding and encoding and blending and segmenting. So as a teacher, I really work on those skills in my whole group instruction. But then in my small group instruction, I try to increase their oral reading fluency by trying to get them to read more words per minute. Once I can get the child to read more words per minute, then I will go back and teach them fluency skills like pacing and pitch and intonation and things like that. That way their fluency becomes stronger and more accurate, and hopes that eventually they'll be able to comprehend because they're getting more words. So we do a cadence testing at our district, and a lot of my students coming in, I had 11 out of 15 that were below benchmark. So what I did is I made my SPM, which is a project that teachers have to do and submit to our administrator. What I did for that is worked on trying to get them to increase their words per minute. So with that being said, with our Acadians, they're coming in and they have to read, but then there's a retell section that then kind of grades or gives direction to what they can comprehend while reading.
Right.
Well, what I've noticed with a lot of my kids, not just this year, but in past years, is that they struggle with getting through the passage because they can't read quick enough and well enough, so that the retell is really low.
Right.
So I wanted to target, how can I get these students to grow and to get more words read so that eventually they can actually comprehend? Because if you have a child that scores 10 words on a passage, and that's taking 3 passages and averaging them together in a 1 minute time clip, they're really going to struggle with comprehending because they didn't get very far to be able to tell you what the whole story is about. So if I have a student reading at 10 words per minute, I want to increase the words per minute by the end of the year, but not just words, they have to be correct and accurate. So that way I always go try to target in my small group. I start always every day small group. We have it's called Open Court, which is our reading series here at our district. And what I do with that is in our back of our manual, we have a kindergarten sight word list, a first grade sight word list, or high frequency word is another term used, a second grade high frequency word, and a third grade high frequency word list. And with this group, noticing that 11 out of 15 were below benchmark at the beginning of the year, I felt very led that I needed to get the sight words more solid for them, because they were struggling with just small words like what, when, where, and were. That's a big one that I've noticed this year that they struggle with. So with what I did is I started in November really targeting sight words. So we started with the kindergarten list. They have now mastered that. We have now then moved on to first grade list and have mastered that. And now we are almost through. We only have about 20 cards left of the second grade sight word list. And I do review sight words every single day during small group because I think repetition and constant repeating and seeing the word and visualizing it and seeing it in the readings that we're reading in the class, it really makes it more concrete, their learning and understanding of that word. So now that I have 3 piles, and you can't spend 50 minutes per kid per group on these children, what I try to do now is, since I have 3 groups already learned, one day I'll do kindergarten and second grade, because second grade's the newest group of flashcards, so they're the most recent ones, so they're not as solid with them yet. So I'll do kindergarten, then second. The next day I'll do first and second, and I'll go kindergarten second. That way they're still being exposed to those words. It's not as daily now because they should know those kindergarten words since we've been working on them since November. Another thing I do in small groups, it doesn't really help as much with words, I don't think, with increasing your words, but I do believe spelling and reading are intertwined. So during our open court, we focus on letter sound combinations, sound spelling combinations. So like last week, we did the oo sound with o, ooh. So every day after I do my high frequency words, I automatically go into breaking down their spelling list and targeting sound spellings, because if they can, and I try to make sure I say to them, hey, what makes the oo sound in this spelling word? Oh, so that when we transition to a reading or a text that we're reading, and they come across a word that has oh, and they read it with that oo sound and it doesn't sound right, I'm hoping by the end of second grade, because we've been working on it, well, if it doesn't say ooh, try like in the foot card, and then they can reflect and turn that reading around. So if they read the word look and they say Luke, well, I see where you got Luke because you had oh and you said ooh, like our goo card, but let's change that oh to our foot card. What sound would it make then? Okay, now read that word, and then blend it. So that's kind of what I do, and I try to target their spelling list because I know that we come from a school district that's high poverty. There's a lot of families that don't have the time to invest because of the poverty and working multiple jobs. So their spelling list is something that I try to take on to try to help scaffold and teach the students, because there's a lot, like last week was the oo card. This week is the oo card, but it kind of has the same spellings as the long U card. And so I'm trying to, when I do teach spelling, I kind of clump them by related spellings. So like blue and grew, we focused on the EW making ooh sound today. And then we focused on just you making the U sound today. So student. I then threw in, because we're doing prefixes and suffixes, so your affixes. Some of our spelling words have prefixes this week. So we misread, misread, however you want to pronounce it, that has miss in the front and the base word read. And I kind of just teach those skills as I review their spelling and teach them their words, so that hopefully when they're taking the test on Friday, they're able to look back and group, oh, blue and grew have the same ooh spelling instead of clue and look at the other one. Clue is the only other one that has the UE, and the word blue, they have a homophone because sometimes they want to automatically put blue BLUE because they know how to spell that. But really it's BLEW. It's the other one. And we've talked about homophones all year. So I pull in my spelling. After I do my spelling, usually on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I pull a book that I believe is at their level, and I look into their books. And like, for example, my low group is right now reading Henry and Mudge and the Sneaky Crackers. And what I will do is the first week, I mean, some people think that maybe I spend too much time on it, but I truly believe as a teacher, they need repetition and exposure to the same text so that they can get more fluent with it. So I know that with small group, I try to pull in different books like this. Working with Patton and the state, they really push the decodable books that come with our series, which I do them during whole group.
Right.
And I do sometimes pull them back and let them read them again with me just to build that fluency and that confidence. But this is for my low group. And as you can see, what I'll do is I'll go through the first day. We'll read the first chapter, then we'll read the second chapter. And the first reading you'll see is always a little rough because they're coming across words that they might not be familiar with. So they have to stop and they have to break those words down and decode them and then blend them, which slows the reading down. Now, because I believe in repetition and repeating reading, I'll extend that book for 2 weeks. So the first week we'll decode and get a little bit more fluent. The second week, I'll be like, okay, boys and girls, I want you to read that and I want you to breathe when you get to the period. How does your voice go when it gets to the period? Does it go up? Does it go down? Put expression into it. So those things to build their confidence in their reading. So that's my low group. Right now, my middle group is, and this group gets pulled for title support too. So they're getting double dose of small group reading instruction along with my low group. They get double dose too. This is the story that we're reading, Wait for Me, Captain. And today they started reading it, and I'm just so proud to see how they've come from the beginning of the year. Like before I started doing these books and we were just doing decodables, they were like really struggling to decode words. Now they're doing it in their head and putting it out. So I'm really excited that they're able to read this. Now, were there some errors? Absolutely. Did they get caught up on some words? Absolutely. But their confidence in reading is growing. Right. And I'm hoping those words per minute will then grow more. That's my middle group. And like same thing, they'll read it through the first week and then we'll practice the fluency the second week to make it more concrete. And then my high group right now is reading Dear Friend, which is a journal entry from a girl named Lisa to Dr. Blackmore, I believe, if I'm correct with that, sorry. Yeah. So they just started it today. They will read through that, and there were some words that they struggled with. I had one little boy, very proud of him. Poor was the word today. He paused right in the middle of a sentence, which I'm like, don't stop. But he had to because he didn't know the word. Right. But he took time, and usually they've been learning, oh, you can say ow. But he didn't read it like that. He took time. He must have did it in his head because he didn't say anything, but he came off with poor. So he was able to maybe say, ow, or that doesn't sound right, and that doesn't look like the power I know. So he was able to make those connections in his head and then come off with poor and keep it going. Wonderful. So yeah, I was very proud of them with how well they did with these books. And this was only the first day I introduced them. They will continue these this week, and then next week we'll be reading them pretty fluently. Right. So that's the main 3 things that I do for a small group, my small group reading. On Thursdays, I do pull in vocabulary comprehension. Open Court series, our series has each week a set of vocab words that they need to focus on. So I use Thursdays because Friday's test day. I'll use Thursday to work with their vocab cards, and we usually do like a sorting match game, and then we do a worksheet together to put those vocab words into practice, into sentences to make them sound correct. So that's kind of what I do on Thursdays, and I take the book out because we just don't have enough time to get it all. Right. I have been starting. Now, these books that I just had Ms. Durstein show you, these are books that I started probably around, I would say it was mid-year. I started going. Before that, I was doing decodable, which I believe does help enhance reading for children. However, sometimes I think when they're reading that same book in small group and whole group, they kind of get bored with it, or they're like, can we read something else? So I tried to pull in books that had color and excitement because we can't print in color.
Right.
And they're kids. They want to read books, and it's important for them to have a book in hand. So even though I do still do the decodables, and I do swear that it does work when you keep going over them,
Right.
they build fluency from reading those decodables every day during whole group. But I feel bringing these into small group has really taken their reading to another level. And I just started that in January. Now back to my SPM that I mentioned would go into our administrator. Every teacher has to do an SPM project. And from the beginning, with 11 out of 15 being identified as below grade level, I automatically thought I made my goal to increase my words per minute for my SPM. So here's a student. I won't mention names, obviously, because it's confidential. But there's this young man, okay? At the beginning of the year, he had 3 passages given to him. He had a minute to read each passage. Based on errors and all of that, they calculated out exactly how many words that he reads per minute based on those 3 passages. At the beginning, he had a 27 words in 1 minute that he could read. But his accuracy was a 77%, showing that even though he was reading words, they weren't always correct, or that brought his score down because, and his retell was a 7. So that shows all of red, which means below grade level.
Right.
Come mid-year, this young man has been receiving title services from the beginning of the year and has a double dose with me every day in small group reading. He is now reading 47 words per minute, so he increased already from beginning to mid-year. I guess we took our test in October, and here in January is when we tested.
Yes.
So from October to January, he's increased 20 words per minute. His accuracy went from a 77%, which was red, to 92%. So he's more accurate with his reading, his oral reading fluency. And his retell is 11. So he did go up. I mean, the retell's still weak, but that doesn't surprise me as an educator, only because we're still building confidence in his ability to decode, to blend, and to read more words. I was thankful to see the accuracy going up.
Right.
And I also love that the words per minute are going up too, and he's getting more right. So that's just, to me, that's a win right there. Do we have a lot more work to do? They were going to pull this child out of title services in one of our meetings that we had, but I really fought for him to keep him in because I think, honestly, he has so much potential. He just needs more help to get there. Let me go to another student.
So Miss Evans.
Yes.
So as I'm listening to you talk, you are hitting many different various areas.
Yeah.
Our focus during this session is going to be an area that you want to identify as a problem.
Okay.
So when thinking of the reading and writing you want your students to do and the teaching you want to do, what gets in the way?
What gets in the way?
So I think your main focus, you said you wanted to focus in on
increasing the words per minute.
Exactly. So your focus area, you said you want to focus in on the fluency aspect of it too as well.
Yes.
Yes.
I want to work on getting my words per minute up. And that way, but not just the words per minute, you want to work on that accuracy being correct. And the more they decode, the more they encode, the more they segment and blend, that's going to come. And that's where ECRI plays a part into the phonics foundations needed.
Right, right. So looking here at the data, let's go ahead and look at our data that we just pulled up. Looking here, I see that you have been making a lot of progress with a lot of kids, and they have been making a lot of growth. Yeah.
And it's important to note, Ms. Thurstein, that like here's an example of another student, a young lady who has never got title support, but at the beginning of the year, she was reading 91 words correct per minute, which is above grade level at the beginning of the year. Her Accuracy was 97%, and her retail was a 29.
Okay.
Come mid-year, she went from reading 91 words per minute to 133 words per minute with 100% accuracy. So her accuracy got better, but her retail dropped. So this young lady is in my highest group. So that shows me my highest group, as they continue to get more confident with their words per minute and reading those books quicker, I can do then more deeping into the comprehension of those stories.
Sounds good. And then also, I mean, yeah, you kind of hit already some different areas that I wanted to hit on,
Good. Maybe
which
I'll
is
save you the
fine.
talking.
You
You don't need to even ask me questions. I'll tell you my whole life.
Well, my whole thing was more so, yeah, what strategies you already have tried so far. But it sounds like you have tried numerous strategies
a lot of
to help build.
high frequency
Right.
words, practice, reading books constantly and rereading, repetition reading,
To build your
tying
fluency.
spelling into reading.
Right.
Yep. And
And you have seen positive growth from this.
yes.
And even looking at your data here, I only see one student that went down. And that was only by 1 point. But even
And
still,
I think if I'm correct, if it's the student I'm thinking, which I know you can't say names, I believe that student, that young man, he had a pretty high score at the beginning.
Yes.
To start off with. And sometimes that can get discouraging as a teacher when they come in high, keeping it high, because that benchmark, they might be reading 133 words. Well, that benchmark goes up, but their number has to keep, like,
right.
So just because they get better doesn't mean they always hit benchmark, because that benchmark raises each test.
Right. And I mean, this is looking at your scores. I see a lot of kids that have gone up 50 points. There was one I saw that went up 90 points. That's amazing.
Yeah.
This just shows the amount of work you have put in from the beginning of the year to mid-year point, and then also just to see where they will come by the end of the year.
Yeah. And another beautiful thing, a strategy to use too, as we read at the first week, I don't do it too much, but the second week, as they build more fluency, confidence, and confidence in the story and the words in the story, partner reading is a good strategy.
Yes.
And I love watching them. They correct each other. Like, hey, you read that and you stopped in the middle of the sentence and not the period. Like, you can hear them picking up things that you point out and redirect them on. So I love to see that. And another extension that is not doing small group, but just an extension in the classroom, is just getting children to want to read. And I'm not saying that, I mean, everyone has a different opinion. I do a 25 book contest. Like, if the students read 25 books and the parent signs saying they read it, so I don't question the parent. So I hope that they do read it and they're honest about it. They need to read 25 books by the end of the year. And I have a library full of books, about 200 to 300 books in my classroom, that I actually have a library system that they can check out a book and take it home. And it just allows kids to fall in love with reading. Because sometimes at school, I know for me as a former student, reading could be a chore when you didn't really enjoy it.
And even at, like,
especially being a math person.
Well, even still, like, at our grade level.
Yeah.
Like, if the kids are not at grade level, they're not going to find enjoyment.
Exactly.
It's going to be more tedious.
And sometimes it's finding the content you want to read about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As well.
I have a young man in here. He's not a big fan of reading. He likes his math, but he is not a big fan of reading. But you give him a book about a fish, I'm sure that he would fall in love with reading, because fishing is his thing. Like,
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
I love that you already have figured out what the kids like to read too as well. That definitely makes a big, big difference. So I was kind of looking up some different ways to help build upon your fluency. Fluency has been more of a area that you said that you want to work on too as well. And looking here, you've already kind of hit a lot of these areas, but I still want to come in and observe you and see how your kids do as well. So yeah, hitting the vocabulary, drilling the sight words.
And I don't know if this is a strategy, but another thing I find very crucial when reading is children need a track and follow along with their finger.
Yes.
Even when they're not reading and their friends are reading, I always have them track, because if they're reading along, they should follow along. And then I will tell them, so-and-so just read this word on the other page. You should know it.
Mhm.
If you're following along, you should be paying attention to the words being read on the page to try to
Absolutely.
be responsible for their reading.
Absolutely. Yep, and then talking about making a use of a variety of books too as well. Maybe even trying some different font sizes too as well.
Okay.
Depending on how the kids read too as well. And then it says creating a stress-free environment too as well, and a steady pace too as well. And I also was looking to, I like the choral reading. I think you already do that in your whole group.
More of a whole group.
That's a whole group.
And let me just clarify, choral reading, I think I'm right, if I remember, I believe this is what I do. When I read, I leave out a word and they have to fill the word in.
You can do that.
That's, or is that more of a closed reading? I'm getting confused now.
We'll look into that
one. The bird was in the class will say nest because they should be following along.
And I think that's, kind of focusing in on, are they following along?
And then I know there's another reading where you just all read together.
I think that's mainly the choral reading. Too as well. So I would also like to see if maybe we can set a goal for us too as well.
Okay.
What do you hope to attain from this project? So I know that you have a goal set in mind at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a great thing that we can work towards.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to stick because I already have a goal for my SPM, and I'm working for that goal. The higher we can get those words, I just want to see those words per minute to increase as much as I can.
Absolutely.
Because I know that comprehension is extremely important, but until you learn to read, you can't read to learn. And I feel like we're in that crucial age and that time that from kindergarten to second grade, these children are learning to read. They're learning the phonics and the foundations of reading.
So building that fluency aspect.
Fluency,
and then making sure you hit that accuracy too as well.
And then when they go to third grade, which I've taught third grade for 5 years, it's a whole different ballgame because you expect those kids when they're coming in to be able to decode, to be able to use those tools and strategies to read words that they don't know yet. But sometimes that's still a struggle. And that's why I feel kindergarten and second, we really need to target those phonics skills and decoding and encoding and blending and segmenting to build the words per minute to get the fluency better. That way, when they go to third grade, they can read and then they can work on their comprehension because there's a transition from third on. You are no longer learning to read.
You're reading to learn. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I really look forward to see where this goes. I will look for more strategies. It sounds like you're on the right track, though.
Yeah. Any strategy you have. I don't use them, but I know there's like these. I have not gotten them out, but they're like highlighters that you can like highlight the sentence they're reading. I don't know if that would be a tool.
I have access to some that we can try that.
Maybe try that. Anything that you can give that will help.
Absolutely.
Increase fluency. I know after a month and a half, 2 months, some of these sight words, there are still children that don't have them like this. And I try to do in a circle, give me 5. Give me 5. And when you're not reading out loud, you're still reading in your brain because repetition and exposure to those words constantly is a huge thing. I know another strategy that I've seen used for like a lot for sight words in kindergarten and first grade level. I mean, I definitely think you could use it in second grade, but as they're getting older, they should be getting better at those, I believe, is like one of those cards at the give me a fist pump and say the word what, just because the more exposure, the more engagement. And the more children can read in a day and the more opportunities they have to read, the higher their reading is going to go.
Absolutely.
If the teacher's always reading and doing the reading for them, which in some cases we have to because some of our kids cannot read the stories in our basal or
leveled reader,
or you know what I mean, our open court reading book,
our grade level,
whole group book, anthology, I should say. But anyways, they struggle with those because those are above our grade level, and 11 out of 15 kids were well below grade level before coming in here. So, but now, because of what we have done and because of the confidence they're gaining, I can now see them by the end of the week, they're able to read those pages, some of them by themselves. There might be one or two that still really struggle, but the majority of my kids can now read the stories that I'm reading to them because they're following along. We're doing choral reading. We're trying, well, I don't know if it's choral reading, but like leaving out the word and they have to track where I'm at just so they're engaged and paying attention.
Well, I really look forward to coming into your classroom.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, observing your kids and your small group reading.
And if you have anything to offer when you're in here, just make sure that you let me know.
Will do.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss Evans.
Thank you.
Much.